John Capotosto, who is the owner of Armor Products. That's right by Home Depot, and sells. It's a mail-order woodworking supply company, and you can walk in and buy stuff right there. Wow. I know John and his brother Rosario by my early readings of woodworking with Popular Mechanics, Mechanics Illustrated, Popular Science. Him and his brother used to write the various articles and show you how to do some woodworking in those days. And I'm talking about when I was 14, 13, you know? And this is
they had printing then?
Oh yeah, listen, they even had printing then. I'd like to introduce John Capotosto, our member, who's going to...
What he didn't tell you was that just the other day we figured out how many articles I did for the magazines. It was over 2,000. I started when I was 20 years old. What I was going to show you tonight was on this truck. Yeah, this is a 1920 PS Arrow. It's an exact replica of it, I guess, in small scale. And when I started to make the tank, which is a solid piece of wood, I couldn't figure out how to do it. I tried using a plane, but that wound up in the fireplace. So the only way I could figure out doing it properly and get it exact is well, I don't see the sample. Anyway, it's an oval shape with a flat bottom. Okay? Oh, right. The marker. This is the end view of the piece. Okay? So to get this exactly perfect, as perfect as I could anyway, I used a router, and I made a jig, which looks like this. This is pretty beat up, but I made quite a few of these. And this end piece is the exact shape of that tank. And I wrapped a piece of 1/8 inch plywood on the top of this, okay? And why? Because if I used that piece as the template, the router bit would dig into it. It had to make it at least an eighth of an inch cut. That would make it cut below the surface. So I added this to compensate, okay? So I take a block of wood and cut it as close as I can to the shape of the oval, okay? I trim it as close as possible so that I won't have to do too much router work. But anyway, this is done with the router, and I'll show you in a second how I do it, okay? I'm going to mount that block of wood on the onto the form here. Okay. Let's see. Okay, now the other side. The reason I have to line it up is if I don't, I'll be offset on the piece. It has to be centered over the ends of the Okay, now this is cut just a little bigger than those ovals, right? Okay. Now, when I made these, the original, I just mounted this in a vise, but here it wouldn't be practical, so I'm using a setup like this. Now, let me get this out. Okay. That's just to hold it so I could Okay, now I'll just clamp this. Thank you. Okay. Now, it is a router. It's mounted on a board. I have this projecting the same amount as this piece of plywood here, 1/8 inch. Okay? These are stops. I put them on now. When I made the original trucks, I didn't put them on. I went off a couple of times, so this will stop it. Go right to the end here, okay? Likewise here. So, all we got to do, you don't have to look at this thing. You can just go back and forth like this and cut. When you're all done, you'll have an oval. Okay?
Yeah.
I like to use it with my left hand. Yeah, the idea is that, you know, it'll take an hour to do the whole thing here. Right. But I just wanted to show the principle, okay?
Go ahead.
And
tell them.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's about it. You just keep on doing this until you get that thing nice and smooth and exactly the shape of this thing. It takes time, and I don't think we should do the whole thing right here. You got the idea of the principle, right? So when you're all done, it'll look like this.
Talk about this too?
Here's another, well, this is from one of our books. This tabletop here, it's a weight bench top. It's over 5 feet long, about 30 inches wide. And the only way you could get that thing planed, or you can use a plane, but this was 20 pieces of wood glued together side by side. And when it was all done, there were bumps like this on the top. And we tried to plane, but this jig that you see this jig here, this rides in this cradle here, and you slide it back and forth on these rails. If you set it up right, that thing, well, you can see it here. Look at how rough this top is right here.
Can't see it.
It's hard to focus. Anyway, this is all beat up. It's all cupped and all over here, and uneven. And this part is done here. Here it's done flat. Look how smooth this is. This is all rough. And anyway, that's another use for the router.
By attaching two rails on the side of this workbench, and he uses that as rails, as he's using the rails, as he's using these two rails over here for the oval shape. So you can actually flatten out your workbench by using the same technique using a router.
Right.
And obviously you're going to use a bigger cutter, and you're not going to use a trim router. But even with a trim router, you can see what you do.
Right. And well, that's so much for that. But somebody was surprised. I happened to notice this in the latest fine woodworking, I think it was. They showed how to plane a piece of wood. To, bring it down. My planer goes down to 1/8 inch. I can't get it less than that. But I made this piece, which is 20 thousandths on the planer. And it's very simple. You just glue this with transfer tape. Well, they say double-face tape. I use transfer tape because it's only 1/1000th or less than 1/1000th of an inch thick. It's almost no thickness. And I've used double-face tape, which is a little thick, and what happened was that piece flew off. You can't just pull it apart because this thing will break right apart. You use a kitchen knife, like a bread knife, Just split it between and then just push it right down. Just be a slicing a watermelon, you know. And it comes right off. Now, sometimes the tape will stick onto the work, and sometimes it'll stick onto your onto the banking. Well, if you have to take it off, the best way to remove that tape is you can rub it and rub it and rub it, but I find that the belt cleaners, the rubber belt cleaners that you use on a sander, I cut a little chunk of that off and just use that as an eraser. Somebody asked me about the wheels, that's why I brought a sample in. These wheels, okay? I could pass it on if you like after. This is such a perfect fit. It's not because I'm so good, but the way that I did it. I draw a circle on this piece, okay? And then just cut the table, the scroll saw table about, it all depends on the angle, 5 degrees, 7 degrees, it all depends on the thickness of the saw blade and how thick you want to insert this piece of wood, so you have to experiment. But you set that machine and cut it. I cut that circle, separate it, cut the spokes out now, and then this piece is very, well, look at it, it's a perfect fit here. I have to line it up because you have to get the orientation. This is such a perfect fit here. There's no space between the end of the spokes and the inside of that rim. The reason is that you're just taking up the curve space. And after you cut this piece was this thick, of course, so the back is sticking out about a ½ inch or so. And to get that off... Wait, what? You can't hold a small piece like this in your hand. Alright, thank you. You can't hold a small piece like this in your hand and try to cut on a bandsaw. I wouldn't anyway, or a table saw. So I glue those pieces onto a block of wood. These are all the remains that they're like one. This would cut from here like this. Okay? I glued it on. Then I ran it through the bandsaw to keep my fingers away from the blade. And I did that for all the wheels on the truck. Anyway, that's the way to do that. And then you can take this. Now you take this, clean out all those spokes, sand them around, and whatever you want to do with them. Then insert them again and glue them in place, and you're all done. And I think that was about it.